back. You join us after a coffee break here in Amsterdam, and we now have a session looking at the whole area of fraud in A2P SMS. But we're actually going to be initially talking about a very specific type of fraud that has made a very unwelcome appearance in the past few months. This panel discussion is kindly supported by LANCK Telecom, who are the prime sponsor of MEF Connect's Business Messaging 2022. So thank you very much to LANCK and indeed all our other sponsors. Joining me in person today are Cathal Fitzpatrick. My pronunciation wasn't particularly great, so Cathal, come on up. It's not come on down. Great to have you with us. Tomikas, who if you had joined us yesterday, you would have seen Uku in action at the end of the day on the jury. And online, we have 3 people, so fire it up, online people, please. There we go. Joining us, we have Tim Biddle from Cinch. Fear not, you'll get some time to introduce yourselves. Ehsan Ahmadi from Vox Carrier and Vladimir Smal from LANCK Telecom. So let's start with a few introductions. Cathal, yourself, your background, what you do, and what your company does.
Personally, I've been in messaging since 1994, so I challenge anyone in the room to have a longer heritage than that. I work now for Openmind Networks. We're a provider of messaging platforms and to mobile operators and hub providers, and we also have a large range of fraud and revenue assurance services as well that we offer on top of our platform and other messaging platforms too.
Fantastic. So your platforms are deployed globally, yep. So you're bringing a global perspective here as well. With me is Uku from Messente. Same for you, sir.
Yeah, so I'm the Chief Connectivity Officer for Messente Communications. Messente is a messaging company. We work with a lot of enterprises, aggregators, everybody around the world with a variety of products to help companies with their usual messaging needs. And you know, the topic very much has become something that I have to personally deal with on a day-to-day basis. So interested to share some ideas.
Fantastic. Next up, Tim from Cinch.
Hi everybody. So yes, Tim from Cinch. Apologies I couldn't be there in person today. Great to have the hybrid event. I think this is a topic we're really interested to talk about at Cinch. So my background is 12 years working for one of the mobile operators in the UK. The last 2 years I've been working at Cinch. This particular topic, really glad that LANCK asked us to join in the conversation today because it's of keen interest to us. It's certainly a fraud we're seeing. So very much look forward to the panel and some of the conversations to be had.
Fantastic. Ehsan, over to you, sir.
Hello, everyone. Hello, James. Thanks for having me. I'm Ehsan Ahmadi, CEO and founder of Vox Technologies and Vox Carrier. Happy to be here with you. I don't know, we had a meeting. We have a lot of webinars together, panels. So about Vox, we do monetization. We all have Vox 360, the anti-fraud solution for voice, SMS, and flash calling, and we help mobile network operators mainly to monetize their voice and SMS business.
Fantastic. So I think you bring with you a very, very strong voice background. So a lot of the types of fraud we've seen in voice over the years have made their way into other areas, notably what we're talking about today, business messaging, business SMS, A2P SMS. And last by no means least, the man of the moment, Mr. Vladimir Smal. Vlad, please introduce yourself.
Hello, James. Hello, audience.
Hi.
Good to be here with you online. So my name is Vladimir. I'm from LANCK Telecom and head of sales and procurement for all what we call global messaging, which includes SMS, obviously. So LANCK Telecom is an international voice and SMS carrier. We are also very active in anti-fraud solutions. We have a really good expertise in voice, and currently we are really busy with introducing our first anti-fraud solutions in SMS area.
Fantastic. So a little bit more background from Vladimir. He mentioned his job title, purchasing and sales. It's very, very rare to meet someone in this industry who is responsible for both sides of the business, both the purchasing and both the sales. So that allows him a very, very interesting perspective to bring to this session. Now, the background to this session, if we back up and look what MEF does, one of the key ways for members to interact is through the working groups. And we've had now for some time the Future of Messaging Fraud and Revenue Assurance Working Group. Those of you who were with us yesterday would have seen an A2P voice flash calling session sponsored by Infobip. That was something that was raised within that working group last October and really caught the imagination of people within the Fraud and Revenue Assurance Working Group. And indeed, within that Fraud and Revenue Assurance Group, this is where Vladimir and LANCK Telecom came along, introducing a new type of SMS fraud on the market. MEF members over the years have collaborated to create a wonderful fraud framework document. It's available for free to everyone in the industry, and it's downloadable from the MEF website. So it's the MEF fraud framework. It's version 3, and in there it's a really simple explanation. It's got a diagram and some text about the 14 known types of SMS fraud. But what Vladimir will now be presenting on is fraud type number 15. And we'll be talking about this as a panel because it's something that the panelists have been seeing across the world coming into play. And then we'll be opening the discussion out in general to talk about SMS fraud. So Vladimir, if you could take it away with your presentation outlining the topic for today's session.
Okay, thank you, James. Let me try to start sharing my presentation. All right.
Yeah, we can see it, no problem.
Okay, so thank you for the introduction and for the first words about this specific topic. I'm not going to take a lot of time because our session is just 45 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, and there is such a good panel, so I would like people to talk more and discuss. So I'll just give you a really brief on the fraud in SMS. So what we see as the major factors for the fraud outbreak in SMS is, first of all, that there is more and more players on the market, including the bad actors and fraudsters. So currently it's really hard for any brand to control how the traffic is actually terminated until the consumer. Then there's a national growth of A2P SMS market, which everyone has already discussed during this event. Surprisingly, international A2P SMS rates are also growing. This is what we are going to discuss later today during the last session of this event. So the revenues are growing a lot within the market, and it makes it really profitable and tempting for the rogue parties and for fraudsters to actually get in and start doing fraud. As I mentioned, LANCK has a very good, well, actually more than 20 years experience in voice business, and we've been very active in voice anti-fraud solutions. And we can see that in the voice market, there's a lot of measures that have been already made in order to tackle the fraud. So it's getting harder for the fraudsters to commit fraud in voice. And we assume that many of the bad actors which were earlier doing fraud within the voice business, they have actually moved or started doing fraud, similar scenarios within SMS business. So the main objectives of SMS fraud, as it was identified by MEF Business SMS Fraud Framework, which James has just mentioned, is basically identity theft or data theft to get information about banking or financial accounts of a consumer. Also, the target is to have to get profit from the commercial gaps within the messaging structures, within the way the traffic is terminated. And of course, the SMS fraud is aiming at manipulating messaging features and bypassing firewalls to monetize this channel. So James just mentioned 14 main fraud types, which are listed in the MEF Business SMS Code of Conduct, MEF SMS Fraud Framework, sorry. So these are also divided into 4 groups. Most of those type of fraud the audience should be well aware of, such as gray routes, bypass routes, spam, SIM farms, phishing and spoofing, SIM swap, etc. So I'm not gonna describe all of these types. I encourage you to download the file from MEF portal, and you will have the very good explanation of each and every product scenario. So we have identified one of these scenarios that is not currently listed within this MEF business SMS fraud framework, and we suggested to have this presentation and discuss it in more details, as we see that there's there's more and more cases of this type of fraud, which we call generated traffic or artificial SMS generation. So hence this is number 15. There is a number of research that have been made by reputed companies like Mobile Squared in terms of what operators are doing in terms of fraud. So for example, there's this report again, which is available at MEF portal, about which is called Mobile Operators and A2P SMS Report 2021. There was 66 MNOs that participated in the report, where they've been asked several questions on different topics around fraud, such as which are the fraud that posing the greatest risk for MNOs, or which are the main factors for investing in anti-fraud measures, or which they consider as the most helpful fraud detection features. The reason I'm putting it here is because the 15th type of fraud is not much affecting MNOs revenues, and in some cases it's actually helping MNO revenues. So MNOs should not be much concerned about it. Hence, they are more concerned about gray routes, SIM farms, and SIM swap fraud. Okay, so the major impacts of SMS fraud is obviously the direct financial losses. Then there is a reputational damage to brands when the SMS are coming from a certain brand but containing fake information and phishing links. Of course, in general, this fraud, some fraud scenarios results in poor quality of service. There is a loss of trust in business SMS as a channel. Customers are getting dissatisfied, and if there is a lot of fraud happening on a certain mobile operator, so we can see that there will be there might be even customer churn to a different mobile operator. Then for the industry, for the good actors on this market, fraud makes the competition harder. So the good actors, the white aggregators, are losing money, in fact. The outbreak of fraud results in introduction of new regulatory measures by mobile operator, which makes SMS, A2P SMS channel more complex, such as sender ID registration, such as contact whitelisting, etc. So it's also not working in favor of SMS. And then obviously, fraud results in the breach of data protection, and there is a lot of cases that has been currently put in the courts from this perspective. So within the MEF business SMS fraud framework, you would see the ecosystem map, and framework identifies, I would say, 5 major parties within the ecosystem. Of course, it's MNOs, then consumers, messaging providers, be it aggregator or CPaaS platform or anyone else, Then obviously business or enterprises or OTT providers, and the support services such as testing company or firewall vendors. So we have drawn a scheme for this new type of fraud, which we have first brought on math. This is the scheme. It might look a bit difficult to, let's say, to understand from this slide. So we have actually prepared a short video showing how the SMS traffic should go, and what happens when this artificial generation happens. So before I start the video, I would like to point that this specific type of fraud is about messages which looks exactly like a normal OTP message, so which will contain a code. So this will not be somehow alerted by firewall, or like normally the parties within the messaging market will look at it as a normal message, no links, nothing suspicious. But the way it works puts aggregators and enterprises at risk of substantial financial losses. So let me start the video. I hope it works. So the way the registration of a consumer should happen normally is like that. So consumer is requesting a code, OTP, then it comes to an enterprise, and enterprise will be sending it through their existing aggregator to MNO or to the MNO directly, depends. But then the consumer will receive the OTP, input the code, and then the registration happens. This is the normal OTP request scenario. Now, how it happens within the artificial SMS scheme? There's a rogue third party which acts as a consumer, so they will be using a number within the MNO number H, which could be both real or fake, like inactive number or invalid number. So enterprise, based on this request, will send a message, an SMS to one of the aggregators. But the important thing is that, like in parallel, there will be other OTP requests happening for the same network from a real consumer. And this is the way it normally works. So there is fake OTP request and the real OTP request, which are received by enterprise. They will be passing it to the aggregator, and then both will might go to a different aggregator, and then the rogue third party, which acts as an aggregator, or they might be cooperating with one of the aggregator, will monetize the fake OTP request and make a fake registration, while the real OTP request that is being sent by real consumer will actually reach consumer, and this is how the scheme doesn't look too much suspicious, and in fact, due to a percent of traffic that has been terminated by rogue third party, the conversion of the route having the rogue third party within it would be even higher than the one from the white route. So what happens sometimes is actually the SMS might not be terminated by the aggregator that is cooperating with a rogue third party. Here it is. So the fake OTP will go a different way. It could be due to the fact that the aggregator has noticed something suspicious within the current route, so they will send it through a different aggregator, and then it will eventually reach MNO. And provided that the A number, or the B number used by a rogue third party is a number of real consumer, a consumer might get an OTP that he hasn't requested. This is what really happens, and I have personally experienced it many times. So I was getting the messages from different brands from which I have never been a consumer. And then there's no conversion, so yeah, the registration doesn't happen. So what we offer and what we suggest as an aggregator, as an active member of MEF, as a signatory of Code of Conduct. First of all, what we can do now is actually raise awareness of the specific generation scenario. We are ourselves working on the anti-fraud measures against this type of fraud, and we're going to introduce it to the market next quarter. And there is a need to work on a common legal practices on how to tackle this type of fraud. We're going to include it in MF business SMS fraud framework. And of course, it's important to increase the number of signatories for Code of Conduct, which is again an initiative by MEF. And we consider that this is at least something that we as part of the ecosystem can do together to combat, try doing something with the fraud. So just to sum up before we start the discussion, so these are the main features about the artificial generated traffic. So the content of this SMS messages is one-time password. It doesn't look like spam. So the SMS will normally not reach consumers at all. This will be terminated by the rogue third party or rogue aggregator. Then the main objective of this scenario is not SIM swap or not data theft, but it's a pure monetization of traffic. So enterprises would be the ones at a loss because they would pay for fake consumers, and then aggregators as vendors and providers for enterprises might incur losses because enterprises would ask for would ask not to pay for that traffic because it doesn't it's not real. Mobile network operators firewalls are not able to detect fraud as per what we know because it's normally not reaching MNO, and then it's not regulated by common SMS agreements. So legally, it's really difficult to deal with this type of fraud. So that's it from my side.
Vladimir, thank you very much indeed for that. That was a great introduction. Now let's get into the practicalities. Let's launch straight into the practicalities. How frequently are we seeing this? Cathal, you've got deployments globally. Have you seen this?
Yeah, starting in March, I started hearing about this type of activity from some of our major hub customers. And I've been working through the various scenarios with them, but I think the current interpretation of the people I'm working with is slightly different, Vladimir. What we see is that it seems to be a type of artificial traffic generation to make one aggregator's routes look bad in comparison to another aggregator's routes. That's their interpretation. So the customers I'm working with feel like they're under attack by bad actors in the A2P business that are making their routes look of poor quality.
This is also one of the effects, yeah.
Yeah, and as everyone knows, you know, the Facebooks and the Googles, they're constantly measuring the termination success, and they will switch traffic if they see routes failing. So you know, it's hard to understand, you know, in the slides you're showing, you know, who benefits, but certainly the people I'm working with, they see it as an attack on them, on the aggregators or the wholesalers, in order to force traffic to be routed to one of their competitors. That's how we see it. That's how we're currently playing out.
Okay, Uku, within your company, your business communications company, connectivity sits with you. Everything connectivity related. Have you seen this?
Yeah, a lot. actually. Over the past 6 months, we've seen a major increase in this, especially on the enterprise side. We work with a lot of larger and smaller enterprises, and it's kind of getting indiscriminate. We used to see it mainly start off in markets where the SMS price is rather large. Take CIS region has been for us the hotbed of seeing these things happen more often, because let's say somebody generates 10% of traffic on top of the existing traffic, does not terminate, still actually asks money for that. The actual amount of money they make from that 10% is rather large and gives them a rather large margin. But we're seeing it more often in other places as well. You know, Denmark, that doesn't have a very high nominal SMS price. We had a client come in who sent, when they came to us, sent about 300,000 messages per month. We started looking at their traffic. We noticed some irregularities, a lot of number ranges that were sequential, absent subscriber ranges, and then we actually just advised them a simple fix: apply reCAPTCHA to your own platform. The traffic dropped from 300,000 per month to 15,000 per month. That's the extent of generation they were getting on top of their things. And it isn't just on markets where the company already operates. For global companies that we work with, they will get attacked in markets where they don't function at all, that they're not even launching operations in, but that they still keep open because some clients might be from a global base, but they don't work to that market, and all of a sudden 10,000 messages per day, 20,000 messages per day out of nowhere. And it's getting broader, and it isn't no longer, at least from our perspective with the clients that we work with, we see it across a broad spectrum of sizes of companies as well as industries. So it is definitely becoming quite troubling to us, and there aren't very many ways to try to find out or identify these things happening well. So we have to look at custom data points and actually analyze data from our clients a lot more to see these types of irregularities. For example, you might see in a market where a client is providing you with the CR data, you might see that the delivery rates in the market are low, but the retry rates aren't high. Usually if you have a connection issue, you would have low delivery, high retry rate. But very many times that we've seen these types of attacks happen, you would have low delivery rate, low retry rate. So we try to look at these kinds of patterns to try to understand when these attacks are coming from, looking for sequential numbers, retry errors, looking for different types of dynamics within that data itself to try to recognize and understand whether the data being terminated is legitimate or not legitimate. But it's very, very hard.
Right, so this fraud can have a serious impact. You mentioned your client there, where it was a factor of 15, 20 times from the original traffic. So this is not something small you can simply ignore and bury and just think, I don't need to spend the money on investigating it, treat it as an additional cost and forget it. Tim, what are you seeing at Cinch? So you work for one of the largest business messaging companies in the world. You had the pleasure of working for the mobile operator before, and now you manage the operator relationships. So you're clearly in contact with the operators every day. First of all, is this something you're seeing at Cinch, and is this something the mobile operators are aware of within their own A2P businesses?
So is it something we're seeing at Cinch? Yes, and I'd echo what the other panelists have said. The last 6 months is probably where it's become really apparent that this is going on. Are the operators aware? It's hard to say. The ones we're speaking to claim not to be aware, which I can very much believe. I think one thing Vladimir didn't go into, but Cathal slightly touched on there, is the motivations behind this as well. And we feel there's a few different motivations. So one absolutely, as highlighted, is the conversion rate fraud. So internally we call this AIT and CR fraud. So artificial inflation of traffic and conversion rate fraud. So there's absolutely an argument where we can see that traffic steering, as you call it. So we might be supplier number one to a big global tech firm who monitors our conversion rate. Suddenly a big burst of undeliverable traffic comes through us and nothing converts. Our conversion rate plummets and you can see it's artificially low. We get taken out of routing. Another aggregator gets added to routing, and funnily enough, we get told, oh, their conversion rate is so high that you kind of know something strange with how well they're converting that traffic. So absolutely that traffic steering is one motivation. We'd say another motivation could be actually we may remain the key supplier to that enterprise, because for some destinations, we have to use other aggregators. There are destinations around the world, for example, where we have no choice but to use other aggregators. Now, there's a very clear pattern that when we get hit with these spikes of traffic as well, and it does deliver, we're delivering through a third party in those scenarios. So there are lots of questions to be asked as to what the motivation is there. Do those third parties have revenue commitments with their operators that they need to hit, and therefore they're generating this traffic and they're delivering it to the operators? Are they short stopping the traffic and the operator has no idea the traffic's coming through because actually that aggregator simply wants to make extra money because they know all traffic towards that destination comes to them? So there are a few kind of elements at the far end where I would question whether the operator really sees or benefits from this or not. And I think the third motivation is hosted number ranges / MVNOs. So if you've got, a number range and you're hosting it on someone else's SMSC, or you're a thin MVNO and you want to generate a lot of inbound revenues, again, great way to work with some sort of developer. Then you could have innocent aggregators such as Cinch sat in the middle, sending traffic in, we'll do a lookup, we'll resolve the number, we'll send the traffic into that operator, and really there's someone owning that number range benefiting as well. So I think 3 clear motivations there. Vladimir, one thing you said was around how this isn't so much of a harm to operators' revenues. I'd slightly counter that just because we have enterprise clients who are fully aware this is happening to them. They're asking us to actively now block entire countries, and they're sacrificing customer experience on those legitimate destinations, and either blocking on an operator or country level and saying, we're not taking this anymore, since you can just block all of our traffic to those destinations. So in that scenario, if you had legitimate traffic as an operator, you're actually now down on revenues because of the short-term behavior that's being displayed. So at Cinch, are we seeing it, James? Yes, unfortunately we are, I guess is the short version of what I've just said.
Yeah.
I just wanted to explain some of how or why we think this is happening too.
No problem. Thank you, Tim. And Ehsan, you were nodding vigorously and agreeing with Tim on certain things. What's your take on it? You've had the benefit of being able to hear everyone else.
James, I mean, we see this, if we look, we see the same thing we've seen the same thing, and we're still seeing the same thing similar thing in voice. It's the IPRN or IPRS, International Premium Rate Services, very similar, working in very similar way. Today, I mean, there are fraudsters that they generate this traffic, and use cases are many. I mean, all the ones that were mentioned are there. Some use this generated traffic to make other aggregators look bad and take over the traffic from their competitors. Some others generate to just to subsidize their selling cost and going more aggressive in the market to capture higher market share. And some other smaller medium aggregators. This game is mainly for the big aggregators. We've seen that they do in this way, making other competitors look bad. And so these type of use case is more, we see it more close to the OTTs. So they play in that level. And then on the lower level, closer to the MNO side, we see small, medium aggregators that they wake up with this traffic. They don't know what to do with it. They struggle with the routing. They find on the end of the day a route that is cheaper and the conversion is good and the customer is happy. And they use that in their routing. What we see on the MNO side, or us as at Vox, as preferred monetization partner, anti-fraud or exclusive route, and we have some, what we see we are very close to the MNOs, basically, is that a lot of traffic coming that are undeliverable. I mean, we cannot deliver it. It's just invalid numbers, or just a lot of traffic that are invalid, or unallocated numbers, or different type that they are not. So we immediately realize that something is wrong, because the gap between delivery and submitted growing big time. And we usually do let OTTs or aggregators that send in this traffic, we let them know, look, something's happening, take a measure, because we cannot do anything. We can just reject it in the worst case scenario, but we cannot stop it from the source, right?
Okay.
when we look at now to come to solutions, when we look at voice, how we manage to similar situation in voice to tackle is that doing this type of awareness, this type of panels, explaining aggregators what they are exposed to. So in order to make sure that they don't use fraudsters in the routing, because they may receive dispute and they may not receive their payment and they lose all the money. Right?
Ehsan, thank you.
It can impact them to get and they may get smashed in between.
Okay, Ehsan, thank you very much. So Tim raised an interesting point. This whole reputational thing, well, started here actually with the whole reputational side of things is massive. And I've just got so many scenarios running through my head. And how quick, Vladimir, does it actually take to investigate a situation of this? So something's flagged up to you, you see something wrong, how quick is this actually investigated within? Because in Tim's analogy, well, not analogy, Tim's real life situation, let's say Cinch's reputation, Messente's reputation, Vox Carrier's representation, and LANCK Telecom's reputation are at stake. The enterprise moves their traffic away because miraculously someone just comes along and says, we just happen to offer great connectivity, and they happen to arrive at the right time when they're experiencing problems accessing an operator of a specific country, for example, then how quickly is this investigated? It's not a matter of hours, is it? It can be several days, or what's the situation?
Our system, our AI machine that currently detects those activities, it actually detects pretty quick. Like it's a matter of seconds, I guess, or minutes. But the challenge is that, okay, once we see it, we do not have a clear understanding what should we do. Okay, so then we're going to talk to our customer who might be an aggregator. Then this aggregator should analyze from their side and then probably address their enterprise that is sending this traffic. And then they will be waiting for, for some comment from enterprise. But what we have seen over the past couple of months that we are doing this is that the feedback from the enterprise is really slow, or there is any feedback at all. So currently what is happening is actually we're just starting to raise awareness of it, and there is not much actions. So investigating the case might take a lot, but we are not really sure that the enterprise is in all situations willing to investigate the case, because from a different perspective, like take some big OTT player like Google or Facebook or whatever. What is seen in their figures? They're growing the customer base, and also they would actually see that their coverage within certain markets is increasing, and the numbers look good, and there is more revenue. So from our understanding, it's not always considered to be a bad thing for enterprise, at least at this time. And not like really few of enterprises and brands, they really consider as a threat and starting to take actions to investigate and trying to block those specific sources of traffic and trying to find the breach within their platform or their system.
Okay, thanks for a minute. Cathal, back to you. The example you gave of a couple of your large wholesale partners, aggregators being here. Yeah. How was the situation resolved? How long did it take? What was the result?
Again, what they were doing was going back to their big clients, the Facebooks, Googles, highlighting these, really suspicious anomalies in the traffic they were getting, that clearly something was going wrong. Somebody else in the ecosystem was benefiting from that. From where the software provider, the hub, the routing engine, and the firewall for those clients, and each individual message is impossible to say. So you just look, you can see the pattern that there's something clearly awry with the traffic, and I guess if the good actors in the industry are highlighting this to the Facebooks and whoever, those companies should very quickly realize, well,
are they responsive?
Who's benefiting.
Are they responsive?
I can't talk to that.
Can anyone
you know,
on this panel
yeah.
answer that? How responsive that they are?
I actually
Uku?
can. We actually spent a lot of time educating our clients on this. Maybe the difference between who we work with and some of the other examples have been major enterprises, the Facebooks, etc. But when you're working with local companies, you have the opportunity to be quite close to them. So it's not a matter of sending emails or finding the right person. It's the pick up the phone and call. So we've now gotten to a point with a lot of the clients who've identified as being those who are prime suspects for these types of attacks. We built a relationship to the point where we're allowed to make decisions on their behalf. So we're allowed to close down markets, we're allowed to close down ranges, we're allowed to adjust things for them, or alternatively, we know the exact person to call to and make it a 5-minute decision over a phone call as soon as we indicate it. And we do also indicate it quite quickly as well, looking at the patterns, having customer reports to make sure that we indicate these things. But for us, the main driver behind getting to this point has been education.
Okay.
Showing the impact, putting the impact into numbers. This is what's being done, this is how it hurts you, this is how it will hurt you in the long run, and then pointing to those things and actually creating that. Trying to take a situation where it's eroding trust in the business and in messaging, and trying to create from that trust in this is how we can manage, this is the issue, being transparent and actually trying to bring back some of that trust into this tool, highlighting that these things will happen, we're working on fixing them.
Fantastic. So are we coming to the close of the session? We could talk about this particular instance of fraud or type of fraud for another 30 minutes, never mind fraud as a whole. I had a rather ambitious idea to talk about this fraud, and then let's talk about SMS fraud in general. That's blown out of the water. But Tim, just to give the audience a perspective, we talk about the Metas, the Facebooks of the world, the Googles of the world. They may be enterprises officially, but when it comes to messaging, they act very much like wholesalers. They switch traffic just like that. And just like that. How long does it take for one of those types of clients, those large, huge corporations, to actually realize something is up, my conversion ratio is down, I'm switching provider? Is it a matter of minutes, an hour? What are you seeing?
It's automated systems. So some of those names you've mentioned, they've built their own least cost routing platforms that will monitor conversion rate. So that is the one-time PIN being used. They'll monitor delivery rate based on receipts coming back from us.
Okay.
So my understanding is, and I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but my understanding is they're fully automated systems. You might have 20 suppliers plugged in. Cinch could be supplier number one. Suddenly someone sends a ton of traffic through us towards barred number ranges by Ofcom that have never been allocated, for example, in the UK. So like Ehsan's example, they are dead numbers that will never ever be deliverable because they haven't even been allocated out by Ofcom if you look at the number ranges, but we get hit by a big spike of that traffic. Our delivery rate plummets, conversion rate obviously plummets as well because we're not delivering those one-time pins, and that least cost routing mechanism will simply at our client go,
Okay.
This supplier's out, this one's in.
That's the key thing to understand. So for everyone here, this type of fraud that Vladimir and LANCK Telecom have brought to MEF members' attention, it's real, it's present, it's clear, it's a danger, it's not easy to fix, and it's not just simply the money side of things, it can affect your reputation. And reputation, as we know from a session looking at the whole of trust with Luigi and Louise yesterday, is super, super important. So that reputational side of things is massive, and this type of fraud can be used very much as a weapon. So Vladimir, I'd like to thank yourself and LANCK Telecom for sponsoring the session, for you personally for bringing this issue to the attention of MEF members, for bringing it into the Fraud and Revenue Assurance group. Ehsan, thank you very much. You're always an active contributor in that group as well. Much appreciated. Tim, great to have you with us. Same for you. Cathal, lovely to see you again for the first time in a number of years in person.
James, yeah.
And Uku, thank you as always for your contribution. So that's it for the SMS fraud topic. A round of applause for the speakers. Thank you very much. Okay.